Efrat, thank you for being a part of Byte Federal Podcast. Happy to have you.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
I'm really excited about this conversation because when I saw your CBDC presentation in El Salvador, I was dying to get you on the show because I don't think there's really anybody who's done the research and knows as much about this topic as you do. So I'm just really excited to dig into this with you.
Thank you so much. But I do want to say that there are some really brilliant people out there doing good work about CBDC and the likes. People like Roger Huang and people like, what's his name? Nick from HRF is doing fantastic work. So the HRF team, they have the CBDC tracker and they keep on updating. In fact, I'm fed from a lot of their information. Charlene, who just wrote a book, who's been covering Nigeria quite extensively. So there are some really cool people. Freddie from the UK Bitcoin policy has been doing good work about that. So all these people are worth following because they're talking about this. And obviously Mark Goodwin, who is talking about the whole theory of Bitcoin dollar and CBDC stablecoins relationship, etc.
Well, those are all topics I want to get into with you. But before we go any further, I want to start with the number one thing. Jerome Powell was just out here the other day saying the Federal Reserve's never going to have a CBDC and they're not working on a CBDC and that they're not even mandated to have a CBDC.
That's
What
right.
was your takeaway from those comments?
And Trump said the same last year in Nashville, remember? You and I were both there. So it seems like they are synchronized in their tune and that the messaging point of CBDC over my dead body is now bipartisan, which is really great. On the one hand, we're all happy that US, who is leading the way, no doubt, is saying no to CBDC. But on the other hand, when the next sentence that they say is we are working on national stablecoins, then all of us who know one or two things about cryptocurrencies, we start asking the usual question: what is the big difference between a stablecoin and a CBDC when it comes to government control, surveillance, or capabilities of enforcement? Now, obviously, CBDC has some dark features that that we don't want to see implemented in a retail CBDC fashion. Things like geographical fencing or expiry dates or things like that, whereas stablecoins probably don't have those features, but it's very probable to expect a stablecoin who is highly regulated that needs to comply with whatever kind of legislation that is going to be put out there very, very soon, because they're working on it, to do some reverse engineering and provide data about users to the regulator if they are being asked to. Very similarly to how it's done today with bank accounts, normal bank accounts, or any other cryptocurrency transactions with commercial banks, right? So if the regulator will come to a bank or to any other entity like an exchange and tell them, give me the information about so and so, that and I want to see the chain of transactions, we have tools like chain analysis in place to actually give them the information that they need. And so a stable coin can be monitored in that fashion, right? And it also needs to, well, it has the, I mean, we can talk about stable coins, but the point is that it's great that there are no CBDCs in the US, but it's not so great that stablecoins are going to be, I would say, a softer version of CBDC. It's more palatable. It's easier for people to swallow. In fact, most people in the US don't even know what a stablecoin is. So it's quite easy to kind of swallow the pill like that. I think it's a nice rebrand.
Yeah, it's a nice rebrand. Exactly. They could just call it a digital dollar.
Yeah.
So before we go into those stable coins, though, I'm wondering how the Federal Reserve, being connected to every other central bank in the world, that from your research shows me many of them are working on CBDCs.
Right.
How could they not want to have a platform that is connected to theirs?
Right. So here's the thing, and this is the latest presentation that I've done in El Salvador, and I'll be doing that again this year. So the landscape at the moment, you got to zoom out from the CBDC topic and kind of take a wider view at the landscape and see that there are many, that we are at the stage of a smorgasbord of digital currencies. It's like a buffet breakfast where they have all these different types of digital global instruments that they can play with and experiment with. And that's what they're doing. When I say they, I refer to governments or maybe other entities like the IMF or the BIS, etc. So, and that's what they're doing right now. They are literally experimenting with anything and everything, including Bitcoin, including KYC Bitcoin, right? So I try to map this, and I can show that screen from my presentation on how many different types of digital currency instruments they have and that they're trying to work with, because they're kind of trying to find the winning formula. Mm-hmm. And when CBDC is not really working, or the public is a bit upset about it and is roaring because it's going to take their privacy away, that they're saying, okay, maybe stable coins, okay, maybe tokenization of assets, maybe KYC Bitcoin's gonna, they're trying everything right now. So we're at that phase that everything is on the table and they're playing around with all these instruments and trying to find the right balance. Now, the fact that one country will tell you we are not playing the CBDC game anymore doesn't mean that they won't be playing the wholesale CBDC game, right? And I'll show you a video about that as well. So let's separate, when we talk about CBDC, let's separate between retail and wholesale. Okay. So retail CBDC is you, the end consumer, with the central bank. That's retail CBDC. So the central bank issues the digital fiat currency and either lends it to the commercial bank, and then the commercial bank gives it to you, or any other financial institution, or it goes directly to you. So direct to customer, from the central bank to the customer. That's retail CBDC, and that's what most people are afraid of. Mm-hmm. And rightfully so, because that's the most draconian implementation of a CBDC. And then the other side is wholesale CBDC, which is commercial banks communicating and transacting between themselves. And commercial banks are transacting with central bankers with wholesale CBDC, and central banks transacting with other central banks. Mm-hmm. So wholesale is everything that is not retail, and they are continuing to work on wholesale. Like if they've stopped retail CBDC, it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll stop the wholesale side, or that they'll implement the wholesale side in a different way. They won't implement it with a CBDC project necessarily. They may implement it with DLT, right? Digital ledger, distributed ledger technology, like the EU is doing right now. The EU has 48 countries all in one project for a DLT project, right? So they're really trying everything. So if they're saying no to CBDC, it does not necessarily mean that they stopped playing. They're playing, and they'll find a way.
The way you're describing that, it immediately hit me that the Federal Reserve could be using FedWire to get to the commercial banks, and then permit the commercial banks to issue regulated stablecoins. Sure. And those regulated stablecoins could then make it into your checking account. And you don't even realize it, but you opted into a public-private partnership.
Exactly. There are many ways that this could come about, and we don't know what the way is going to look like. And in fact, I believe that it's going to look different in different countries. Every country is going to have its own flavor of this implementation, and every country will be connected to other countries in one way or another. Mm-hmm. The why, the how question, in what specific way it's going to be implemented, is it CBDC or DLT or wholesale or blah blah, it doesn't really matter. They'll come
Right.
up with their own formula. And there's a lot of politics and geopolitics involved there, because the BRICS nations obviously don't necessarily want to help other nations. And in fact, I think a lot of it is bullshit and they're all playing the same game. But let's pretend that that thing is real and they're really rivals of each other.
Right.
Then they're going to pretend that they don't want to do business with each other, and they're going to create their own cohorts and in terms of coalitions and stuff, monetary coalitions.
Right.
But what's important to remember is that what is being created right now, in my view, is like the next Bretton Woods. This is the time, like this decade from 2020 to 2030 is a time where the pawns on the chessboard are being reshuffled.
Mm-hmm.
The countries are receiving their own or they're fighting for their roles on the board. They're trying to understand who's leading, who's dominating, who's doing what first, and what's working, what's not working. It's chaotic. It's all over the place. But that's the stage we're in. And so while it's very interesting to watch this unravel and take shape, it's also a bit of to me, it's like a Netflix. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. This is going to happen. So, I mean, I'm enjoying covering this topic because it's so funny to see what's happening. I mean, I'll show you some examples soon so you'll understand what I mean, because they're trying to reinvent the wheel. They're like trying to rebuild layer 1 of Bitcoin once again.
Right.
And it's hard for them, and they're not necessarily succeeding,
right.
But they're trying.
Let me ask you this, because it's interesting to watch governments let Bitcoin in through ETFs and through talk like of the SBR, et cetera, to start introducing Bitcoin into sovereign wealth funds around the world.
Right.
With all this happening, so let's just call this Bitcoin adoption at the sovereign level.
Yeah. At
the same time, I see them following the same path that a lot of early Bitcoiners do. They discover Bitcoin and then they shitcoin, and they start thinking about how it can impact everything. So are they going to play all these games and then discover that they, like what just happened to Javier Milei, right? So you play all these games, you figure out Bitcoin, you play the shitcoin games, you break stuff, you lose money. Are they going to fail at this?
Look, we can't predict the future because the future is based on free will, and each will do their own, and it's really hard to predict. But yes, they're going to play around with all that shit, and they are doing it, and it's not working. And that's why it's so funny to watch. Right. And in fact, this is the second time I think that Milei is doing something like that, like involved in shitcoinery. It's not like he didn't know.
Right.
So we're going to discover some really crappy stuff going forward. And I think it's going to be fun. Now, to your question with Bitcoin, I think a lot of countries are going to try and follow Bukele's model because they'll see that longish term, he is more successful than others. But I think that they will definitely have a national stable coin because they will see what the US is doing with stable coins.
Yeah, right.
So you'll probably have a Bitcoin reserve for each nation plus a national stable coin to be that bridge between traditional finance and cryptocurrencies. And in some countries, you'll have CBDCs implemented. There will be countries that retail CBDC will carry on, will be a thing. Like in Israel, it will probably be a thing. In the EU, with the digital euro, I believe is going to go ahead. In China, it's already happening. In India, it's happening, and it's just accelerating all the time in India. In Brazil, I think it's shaping up really nicely with the DREX. They have had really successful implementation of a central bank payment app during COVID. I think it started in around 2021 or 2020, where the central bank issued this payment app that caught on. Like everyone's on it now. It's like your Venmo, but it's a central bank app in Brazil, and Brazil is huge, right? And now they're adding their Direx, which is their CBDC capabilities, onto it. Like if you merge the two together, you get the ultimate. You get your digital blockchain platform. That's what they want.
Right.
So each country will have it in a slightly different way. But they're all playing around with all the different options now. And it's really interesting also when I do my research for my presentations to go through documents and videos of central bankers around the world, because I kind of spy after them, and you see how it's just really funny to watch. Like when I show you'll
those
understand.
videos in your presentation blew my
Yeah.
mind because I mean you've really captured the truth from behind the scenes, and these people when you hear them explaining the benefits of their program, for
Right.
somebody like us in Bitcoin, it's horrifying. I mean, it's just disgusting to listen to the way they talk about it.
Yes. And they are describing it as the biggest gift to humanity.
Yes.
The CBDCs, like,
the other thing
it's from your bank that you can trust, and it's immediate, and it's safe, and it's private. We're never going to take a look at your data. It's like they're lying up front.
And at the same time, I've heard on a number of those recordings you made, people say stuff like, in an emergency, we'll have this capability, or should some catastrophe arrive, this system could be rapidly adopted.
Right.
Like
so
that
I think it's the Israeli central banker.
Before, right? With COVID, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
A virus is coming someday, right? And this stuff is eerily similar. And when you've been through those, if you're our age and you've been through a couple of those, you begin to immediately recognize that language, and you can just see them setting the table.
Oh yeah. It was the Bank of Israel executive that said that in 2019, the Bahamas hurricane collapsed their financial infrastructure, which resulted in launching CBDC. And he hopes that Israel will not face an emergency that will force it to do the same. What a choice, huh?
Right. I hope. It's so disgusting, that language.
It's so telling.
Yes.
They're just waiting for the excuse to launch, right?
Right. Exactly.
In fact, today they have released a new research that they did that would show them the public's acceptance of CBDC should they decide to launch it. And lo and behold, the public is so happy to receive it. Like, according to their research, it's like 1,000 people that were polled.
And isn't it true that in a lot of cases where they're testing these CBDCs, they're targeting the poorest or the more underdeveloped areas where they can use that this idea that it's more financially inclusive.
Financial inclusion is one of their talking
use this
points.
kind of concept to drive it in and show that people are taking this up. But these are people that are essentially getting free money to utilize in living in environments where they don't have access to free money, right? So, or they don't have access to this. I guess the way to say that would be this new sum of money would be empowering to them, and they never had that before.
Correct. So that's the case of the pilot in Thailand that they did. Although now the central banker of Thailand is saying that they scrapped it, but that's what they did. Mm-hmm. And it's the same in India. They have a universal basic income program that it's the first CBDC backed program that they launched for government subsidies, handing out 10,000 digital rupee annually for, what was it? I think it was for women or something. Like, they find a group in the in the population that really needs money, and they do the experiment on them, as you do with anything else, with vaccines or with whatever.
So for viewers that are not connecting the dots, if uptake of a CBDC is driven by need and at the same time you create a catastrophe that creates need, you can get uptake. And that's always been sort of my base case for how CBDCs get rolled out, is that you create a massive financial catastrophe and people, let's say your bank account goes black, right? You had $100,000 in the bank account. It's zero now. Don't worry. Your government firefighter is here. They might have started the fire, but the firefighter's here, and we are going to give you that $100,000 back. You just have to log into this app. And
Correct.
voila, now in an effort to regain the wealth that was destroyed, you're locked into a CBDC or a public-private.
And when you're in that kind of situation, you need help, right? So that's like the most vulnerable situation you can be in, and you'll probably take money at that point.
Right.
Because you've either lost your home or, they have talked about similar things you've seen like a chargeable card with some subsidies for the people that were hurt during October 7th in Israel from the government. Like they wanted to give them like a chargeable digital card that they can charge with subsidies if they get hurt. I mean, that's like the concept of it, that they actually want to help the population is nice and all. Just see the timings that they choose to actually help. It's the after, not the before or not the during. In so many of those crises that we've seen recently around the world, like in the LA fires, like in Maui, like in October 7th, like all these disasters, you see government response so lacking and so late. Mm-hmm. And then later they start doing all their experimentations with digital money, Korea is another good example, by the way, for welfare and universal basic income. The Korean Central Bank is developing a voucher program for use on smartphones, which can be used for welfare, culture, education, and other services. So that's another example.
I know you've documented a lot of this, but a lot of these tests, these test CBDs or these trial programs are coming with a lot of restrictions and guidelines, which are just kind of painting the picture of what we were all afraid of, right? That you're only going to be using it in a certain radius, or you can only buy certain items. I think you even documented a case where it had an expiration date.
That's right, in Thailand. The thing is, and now there's another one in India. So, and this is very recent. This was reported by the HRF in their newsletter. So in India, the Reserve Bank of India partnered with a fintech firm alongside another commercial bank called Yes Bank to expand the digital rupee, which is their CBDC, with a combined user base of 180 million people. They will act as entry points for public access to the CBDC through their new e-wallet or something like that. It's a CBDC app. However, the app mandates video verification and imposes significant restrictions. For instance, a daily transaction cap of 50,000 rupee, which is $570 more or less, and 10,000 rupee, which is $100 limit per transaction. And today, in the new research that the Central Bank of Israel has released, it said something similar. One of the things that they've asked the people who they polled in the research was about the limitation of how much CBDC you can have in your wallet. If the Central Bank of Israel limits you to 10,000 shekels in your account or 50,000 shekels, and they showed that people didn't really care. They don't really care how much, what's the limit, right? So they're passing it through as a given, this is like the point is, these are all features for them to use, and they're not bothering to communicate about that. They're communicating only about the financial inclusion and the immediate payments and trust the bank and all this shit. But it's very dark if we go down that path. And some will go down that path. It's inevitable. It's inevitable.
The hype was focused on the retail CBDC space. And a lot of that hype has not played out because despite all the pilots, and we did them too, we were quite active in the CBD space for quite a while, and we did retail pilots. We have very good retail payments infrastructure already. So the additional benefit of having retail CBDC is not entirely clear. So I think that combination of not having a very clear use case, plus the concerns that people have, like on the privacy and whatnot, have caused a healthy skepticism about, when we're likely, if we're likely to see stuff happen in terms of a full production rollout of retail CBDC. Okay. That is different from wholesale CBDC. We at the Bank of Thailand, probably other central banks, think the same way, that the use case are much clearer, and also that the downsides and the risks of wholesale BDC are so much lower. So a much more compelling case for taking wholesale CBDC to production.
So you've seen the governor of the Bank of Thailand admitting that, yeah, we've done all those pilots of retail CBDCs, but we're dropping it because there was a pushback from the public, and because there are existing payment methods that work pretty well. So why do we need a retail CBDC? Mm-hmm. But we're going to continue working on wholesale CBDC,
right?
Because that's where the real use case is. And watch this space. Is going to be wholesale action. So that's like a very telling admission of what Thailand is doing. And at the same time, Thailand is using, do you know where Phuket is in Thailand? Yeah. They're using that area for a pilot of KYC Bitcoin. They're going to allow people, that come into the island to download a local app. I don't remember if it's through a local app or through a regulated exchange, a Thai exchange, but in any case, it's a KYC service that you'd have to, identify yourself, and then you could use KYC Bitcoin in Phuket. So they're starting to trial out that too. As I told you, they're going to try out everything.
Right.
Maybe before I jump to the next video, I can show you some of my slides to make sense of the smorgasbord of
While you're bringing that up, a lot of this reminds me of how, we got Facebook and Twitter, and then we found out that inside Facebook and Twitter is the CIA and the NSA and other NGOs that were censoring and behind the scenes, right? So it's like this whole idea of a wholesale CBDC is very reminiscent of that, where, well, it's coming from the bank. It's my bank. And I'm very comfortable with my bank. I've trusted them forever. And the next thing you know, there's somebody behind the scenes that's fiddling with it and limiting your freedom, limiting what you can purchase. And maybe they're just, it's like setting us up for choke point 3.0.
Oh, yeah.
And it won't be targeting an industry. It'll be targeting individuals. And all of a sudden you'll just be blacked out, silenced, and everybody else on that wholesale CBDC may not even know that happened to you.
Because that's the end goal of Agenda 2030 and all the other global agendas that are running in the background. They want total control. And because you and I and most of your listeners know that fiat is a failing system with shitloads of shortcomings.
Yeah.
And the debt just keeps growing, and that's the design of the system. So it can never go back, no matter how much Elon Musk and Trump try to be efficient. Yeah. I think, personally think that what they're doing is great because they're exposing corruption. But in terms of finance, and I'm not a finance expert, but it just doesn't add up that what they're doing is actually going to help the national debt get better.
I have some thoughts there that aren't probably very popular amongst the Trumpies. I'm totally with you. I love the fact that they're disclosing all the corruption and they want to clean this up. But my fear is that when you eliminate the circulation of those corrupt dollars, you reduce M2 and you could induce a financial collapse under the guise of we're doing the right thing, and this is the problem because all of this corruption existed. You shrink M2, then the debt burden becomes enormous. You get a financial panic, and that gives you a window by which to introduce wholesale CBDCs.
Or any other digital monetary system. Yeah.
Right. And now all of a sudden you have tech elite
new rules for the
system.
game, and Tether being, like an enabler of the Fed.
Yes.
In a way.
So it's like you're getting exactly what you want in order for them to deliver exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
You.
So many people are on the sidelines cheering for what's happening, and it needs to happen. But be careful and be aware of what could be coming next,
Yeah, just be aware. Exactly. It's like I wouldn't even say be careful what you wish for, because it's inevitable, and whatever needs to happen happens, but you need to be prepared for this. If they are accelerating the collapse in a way, then you should be aware of what's happening. Okay, and before I dive in, I'm showing you another super important video that I think will make you and when I watched this video, I was like, okay, so this is all planned and they know exactly what they're doing. Look at that. And
what underpins a world order is always the financial system. I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in '71. And so I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new accounting is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights if we're going to have digital money. But also, this new money will be sovereign in nature. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private, but what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency. The Chinese were the first. The US is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well. And the question is, will that new system of digital money and digital accounting accommodate the competing needs of the citizens of all these locations so that every human being has a chance to have a better life? Because that's the only measure of whether a world order really serves.
What do you say about that?
That last line killed me. All of us will have a chance to live a better life.
Most people think this is crypto and private. Look how she conflates the word crypto, like cryptography, with privacy. But we're going to know everything about you. Everything is going to be visible.
Yep. It's money.
Every accounting transaction that there is out there is going to be on the blockchain. Right? This is 2022. Like over
the CIA, the NSA, and the Mossad do not want all their transactions on a blockchain. And they will not have their transactions on a blockchain. There's no way they'll opt into that.
Who? The government agencies? Of course not. Right. But we will.
We will.
Of course.
And so it becomes and I think Eric Kaysen talks about this, right? Crypto in regards to cryptography and creating individual sovereignty through cryptography becomes the war that is going to be fought over the next few decades, right? So, and it's going to be open source developers. It's going to be nation
privacy
state,
tools.
it's going to be Department of Defense, it's going to be intelligence agencies. So this new frontier of cryptography in communications and money and how we do business with each other is going to become crucial for preserving the Constitution and preserving our natural born rights. I
agree.
So it's a massive battle that's coming, and it's just begun. And I don't think people have really.
We're in it already. Yeah, we're in it. It's already underway. And that's why I told you we're at this stage where nation states are experimenting with everything because they have received the green light a while ago to get there by this time, probably 2030, right? Like you all have to be ready by 2030 to launch your new systems. If 1, 2, 3, or 4 scenarios happen before 2030, then we'll launch it earlier. But but be ready. And so they're all racing. And they're all like trying to come up with their best version, and they want to be first, and they want to experiment. So I want to show you what I think it looks like. And you got to remember that this is where we're at the 80 to 100 years cycle in terms of the world's hegemony and the reserve currency. Every 80 to 110 years, you have one nation that is stepping down and another taking over, and the reserve currency is changing. And so we're at the end of the US cycle, but the US, I think, has no plan of releasing that control without a fight. And they want to assume position again for another decade, for another century. But now digitally. So like it's a different rules. We're redrawing the map, and I want to take you here. This is my map, my little, as you can see, I did this, my little map of what they like and what they don't like. Simply put, like they like everything that's on the left-hand side. This is like the buffet of allowed instruments. Let's play with tokenized assets and deposits. Let's play with regulated stablecoins. Let's play with CBDCs, wholesale and retail. Let's play with KYC Bitcoin. Let's play with your Bitcoin, he said, right? Have fun.
I mean, this everything under the smiley face, except for the ETFs and the wholesale CBDC to date, is El Salvador. Tokenized assets. They're doing tokenized assets. Tether is greenlit in El Salvador. There's no the wholesale or retail CBDC yet. They have KYC Bitcoin, and they have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So there's 2 missing. And I've often wondered if El Salvador is the
pilot country,
the pilot program. Exactly.
Could be.
Especially when I saw Bukele come speak at CPAC.
Right. And you know how during COVID you'd had certain countries that played certain roles, like Australia with the social conditioning, and Israel with the world's lab, and Canada, and each country played its own role. So here too, I think in this race you have different countries playing different roles in the experiments, and they're this is probably known to all of them and discussed behind closed doors of where we're at with our different stages.
There's been so much communication between different cohorts in the current administration and El Salvador. It really does start to look more like a pilot program to me, or at least an example of what the United States might try to adopt.
Well, you can look at it negatively or positively. I think that regardless whether it's positive or negative, I think it's kind of inevitable that the US will follow the footsteps of El Salvador and will do a lot of the things that El Salvador is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think that's happening. Is it a program? Is it all planned? Is it just spontaneous and emerging? I don't know, but it's all possible. Now, I think that you and I, like sitting here speaking about all these things that are happening and mapping out the different instruments and speaking relatively freely about non-KYC Bitcoin and cash, I think the day is not far from now where we won't be able to even talk about non-KYC Bitcoin so freely. And you've seen the trajectory of free speech legislation in various, in fact, restricting speech. It's under the guise of disinformation, misinformation, hate speech all around the world in different countries. And so I believe that at one point, non-KYC Bitcoin, like encouraging people to do that, to take self-custody and use non-KYC methods peer-to-peer, may be also one of the topics that you're not really allowed to encourage or talk about.
Right. Well, that's interesting. So I wish I could remember his name, and I can't right at the moment. But I met a Bitcoin educator at Bitcoin Day Naples.
Yep.
Who introduced me to the idea of the next fork war.
Right.
Which follows the implementation here of everything under the smiley face, right?
Right.
The surveillance state, the crypto sovereign state that has fully KYC Bitcoin, and you're allowed to have your stash and you're interacting with the system, but it's all KYC. But it plays along with this idea that we discussed that, this crypto sovereignty war where privacy tools get built out, they get open sourced. And he foresaw the next major fork war as a hard fork that introduced a private non-KYC Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that you would you have your KYC coins.
Yep.
You have equal amount of coins in the new non-KYC privacy Bitcoin chain.
Yep.
And that those two would exist simultaneously. And it was a really interesting idea. And the more I learn about, and the more I see sovereigns adopting this technology, the more I think he's dead on that this is the inevitable battle that will arise between privacy-focused individuals that want to be self-sovereign versus state sovereignty, and that this chain could split in the future.
Right. So while I agree that that's probably how it's going to go, I think that the group of the private, free, non-KYC Bitcoin is going to be a minority, and it's going to be marginalized and pushed out and perhaps even ostracized and ridiculed at one point. And it's going to be difficult. Like, if you want to do that, you'd have to maybe hide the fact that you're doing that.
Right. So, and this is what I was thinking about when I was listening to that video with Pippa, how that kind of surveillance state would create a lot of black market transactions.
Yeah.
Of just simple stuff like, I want a steak. I'm not talking about drugs and pedophilia and war. I'm talking about, I just want a steak. I want access to medical care that I approve of, that the state doesn't approve of, whatever that might be, right? Just like basic things.
Yep.
And a black market emerging for that is going to require the issuance of a new currency that nobody is aware it's sort of like nobody is aware you own it. Nobody is aware that you're transacting with it, and you're just doing it peer to peer, where I know you're on the same page as I am. We nod and it happens. Mm-hmm. And it seems like the world is splitting in two in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I would just relate this to human nature, which would tell me that 60% will opt into the state and the other 40% will have a privacy coin. These
Well,
tend to be the
isn't
way
it?
these things kind of separate
Yeah,
themselves
isn't
over
it, Paul, the way things are going now in all areas of life,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
are just like we are looking at the microcosm of finance, or whatever you want to call it, monetary instruments or digital currencies, but really in all walks of lives right now we are reaching points where people have to choose whether they allow third-party entities to be part of their decision-making routine, and give them access to their own bodies, to their own decision-making processes, economical processes. Transhumanism is bringing so fast the allowance of AI and machines and robots and computers into our bodies and our lives. And I think that will be the ultimate fork of all. The point where you'd have to decide whether you're allowing a machine to merge with your biology, or you're keeping yourself organic as much as you can, because we're already in a way influenced by technology in a really pervasive way. And no one can claim that you or I are not techies, right? We're both in the tech industry. We're both like, we're talking about, we're in a Bitcoin podcast, for God's sake, right? So it's not like we're against technology, but the question is whether you want technocracy and technology to rule you, or you use it as a tool. And that will be the relevant and the most important question for all walks of lives, including this one.
100%.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
And so all these tools that we've seen, as long as you're identified and permissioned, they're fine. They're okay with you, including Bitcoin. You're good to go, mate. The moment you start being all secretive and anonymous and you don't want the state to know something, that's where they start looking at you funnily. So stablecoins, as we said, they have a super important role in this transitory phase between traditional finance to digital finance. And we'll see more and more countries adopting them. Like in Nigeria, you have the CNGN, which was launched a few days ago. It was talked about already a few months ago, but now it's been officially launched in Nigeria as the official stablecoin pegged to the Naira. And in Israel, there is a pilot going called Bills, which is a national stable. It's a stablecoin that is pegged to the shekel. Same thing. You'll see that in more and more countries. Australia has a few pilots, and that's a trend that we'll keep on seeing. And obviously, it will accelerate because you have the backing of the big brother saying, go stable coins, we're good to go. Like David Sachs, I can play this later because it's on the tab, but he's saying, we're working on a national stable coin, and we embrace this because it helps us dollarize the world and continue the global expansion of the dollar, and preserving the position of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. He's outright saying it, like that's one of the roles that stablecoin plays, which is what Mark Goodwin has been saying all along. And, and many were looking at it as a semi-conspiracy theory, but, they're saying it. Now they're saying it. It's always like a lag of 6 months, right?
Yep.
And it's getting shorter and shorter. Now, this is a brilliant video that I must show you. So I'm going to stop sharing and let's see it. It's the governor of the Central Bank of Singapore this time. Dude, seriously, I'm not getting paid by anyone, but I mean, I have Trezor as my sponsor, which is really cool. But when I go through all this shit, all these documents and videos, I think to myself, man, I should be paid so much for what I do because this is so disgusting. Like I have to take a big shower after that. But, I don't get paid, but whatever. So let's play this one. Check it out.
Digital infrastructure to enable very quickly we came to the conclusion that it needed a horizontal foundational digital infrastructure to enable that interoperability across networks, across assets, and across currencies, because this represents, the most significant opportunity to reap the full benefits of asset tokenization. So on the one hand, there's the public blockchain, right? It has a global network, right, which is there, but for accountability reasons, right, and governance reasons, you can't reasonably expect, regulated FIs to put high-value transactions through on a daily basis, right? Then on the other hand, FIs themselves come up with their private permissioned networks, but on a FI-specific basis, can't scale. So then we landed in between, which is what we call the public permissioned network, which is public blockchain equivalent infrastructure serving the regulated wholesale financial market space.
Dude, they're reinventing the wheel.
Basically, to translate that, this whole Bitcoin thing is too open and too traceable, and we need something private that's permissioned and that's just between us.
Exactly. And that's why we came up with
God.
So Global Layer 1 is the Central Bank of Singapore with 24 financial institutions. They came up with this layer. It's a multi-year initiative to develop standards, practices, and principles of digital infrastructure for tokenized assets for the transformation of the financial industry. They're reinventing the wheel, right? So, and that's hard. That's difficult.
Well, but they have help, right?
Oh, sure. They have all the help they need, and obviously all the fiat money they need to make it happen.
They have all the fiat, and they also have an entire crypto testbed that have already invented all this crap.
Exactly.
Under the disguise of calling it DeFi.
Exactly. So they're either going to go to Ethereum or XRP or some other bullshit, and they're going to take some of those best practices,
right,
that have already been implemented on that public blockchain that you can't expect us to use it because it's not permissioned enough, right?
So you just brought up my favorite topic, which is Ripple.
Oh, yes.
So, Ripple is, unbelievably good at marketing. I'm shocked. I think Patrick Bet-David just put up a tweet and asked the question, which blockchains will be the most successful here in the next 20, 30 years or something like that. And Ripple was above Bitcoin.
Was it?
Yes, it was shocking to me that people are number one, maybe they don't understand what Ripple is doing. But if they do, then they're voting with their money for CBDCs. Because Ripple has
I think most people don't. Most people don't understand.
No, they don't. They just think the number's gonna go up.
Yeah.
And
there are some other fairy tales that they've been sold on.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Especially in the freedom community that we come from, just like the QAnon shit, right? Yep. There's a whole, in fact, I think it's from the same creators of the QAnon, because it's in the same groups and whatever, those are the origins. They are promising those people that are following QAnon and stuff, that XRP is going to be the QFS. QFS stands for Quantum Financial System, the financial system of the future, where money is going to be abundant and banks are going to work for you. And you're going to have as much money as you want as long as you buy XRP. And that's why they're all hoarding on XRP, because they really believe that it's freedom money and that there's this Nasara Jasara prophecy that's coming. And if they all stack on XRP and you just wait, as long as it's compliance with ISO
27,001.
Yes, as long as it's compliant with that ISO standard, and the banks like it, then these are people that are supposed to be like anti-establishment
I
and
know.
really like.
And in the meantime, XRP is showing all these banks and showing all these governments how this stuff works, and they're going, "Thank you,
Right.
move along. We'll build our own."
Right. It's insane. It's insane. And XRP, the one thing that XRP has that probably the Bitcoin army will never have is marketing and centralization.
Yep.
Right? They have shitloads of fiat money and some really devious marketeers sitting there coming up with all those smart marketing campaigns.
Yeah.
Very smart.
They're 100% proof of marketing.
Oh, yeah.
They're really
and I'm a
good at it.
marketeer for 20 something years. I know how it works. They're doing excellent work.
Excellent work.
Excellent work. And it's ridiculous to see how many people fall for it.
I know. And you don't know how many, like, we have a Bitcoin dinner around here that we go to like once a month. And all of a sudden someone will drop what do you think about XRP? I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Not again.
I know.
Not again. Like number one, it's every cycle. Number two, every XRP pump is less prominent than the previous cycle. And it's the same marketing BS every single time, and every newbie gets caught in it.
Yeah. And you know what? I thought that when I'm going to do the work and prove, at least to that group of like freedom lovers, that XRP, that Ripple is actually promoting CBDCs and is in bed with central banks and governments, that they will go, oh, we didn't know, and they'll drop it.
Right.
But they didn't.
No, yeah.
And they kept on barking at me.
Or they'll say, well, I'm just in it for the trade. Like,
right. And they will never admit that. But then I tell them, you don't even know what money is.
Yes.
You don't even know what abundance like you call it abundance, but what it really is the ability to keep on creating and printing endless supply and issuance of your token that will make you poor forever. Yep. And they don't want to know. They don't want to hear. They're like da.
It's
XRP.
Literally digital fiat. I mean, it's just the way they run their company, the way they spin the stories, the way they attack Bitcoin. It's really it's like a mini sovereign state that's running a digital CBDC of their own, taking advantage of their customers, taking advantage of their token holders. And I just can't fathom the people. I guess people just are not doing the research to figure this out.
Of course not. Yeah. They don't want to know. They don't want to understand what is money, how money is being created. I really thought that when I'm going to expose my audience that is on the most part like red pilled after COVID to the whole money scam, like fiat scam, they'll be delighted. But people don't want to learn. It's insane. Right? So do you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
So this video, like I thought that would be a winner. But
can you enlarge the video?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Perfect.
I often get asked the question, what's the most exciting thing about CBDCs and stablecoins? In one word, innovation. My name is James Wallace and I head up CBDC at Ripple. You might already know that over 90% of central banks around the world are now exploring CBDCs. There are many drivers for CBDC, including the decline of cash, improving payments efficiency, lowering costs, and the desire to innovate the ways in which money is used. Ripple's CBDC platform is your one-stop shop for the creation of digital currency, designed for minting, managing, transacting, and redeeming CBDCs and stablecoins. Here's how it works. First, standard APIs.
Okay, that's boring now, but you get the point.
Yep.
And
all of you XRP holders, you just bought a coin from a company that issued it, and they're taking those dollars and they're then marketing the Ripple platform to central banks around the world to develop their own CBDCs to enslave you. So
Yeah.
you're financing your own enslavement. I don't
Exactly.
even know how to say it any other way that you're funding your own demise. Like,
That's right. You're fucking building your own prison cell.
yeah.
Is the relationship between the public sector and the private sector. As I mentioned earlier, we view that the public sector, the central banks working with the government will be the designers, the rule setters in terms of policy, and the implementers of the platform for the core capabilities around wholesale and
Dude,
retail.
they're
CBDC.
building their fucking prison cell. That's what it is.
I want to I don't want to be mean. I try and, like, when I interact with people on Twitter, or I always keep calling it Twitter. I interact with people on X about it. I try and, like, explain it, but it just is infuriating because it's been every cycle that I've been involved with. I've had these arguments about Ripple.
I go through the motions of being upset and laughing about it. Right now I'm laughing, but because, there's nothing we can do about it. People just want to stay zombies, and it's their free will. It's their choice. I think this is interesting to see in this. First of all, they have their own stablecoin. In case you didn't know, they just launched RLUSD. So in case the US government is closing the door on CBDC, they can come in through the stablecoin door, which is open.
Commercial banks, and just here's a white labeled stablecoin.
There you go. And then listen to this. Listen to Giacomo.
For a while about Bitcoin, and then I understood that I was wrong to be skeptical, and then my in 2013 I was skeptical for a while about Bitcoin, and then I understood that I was wrong to be skeptical, and then my skepticism collapsed, and I started to believe in anything and everything. And one of the things was going through Bitcoin Talk, Satoshi Nakamoto wrote in 2010 that Ripple was not so bad, actually a very good and legit project. So I started to go all in Ripple, and I was also helped by the fact that I was in Bitcoin Amsterdam conference, and the Ripple guys at the stand had very, very tasty biscuits. So I was a little bit biased, but I started to Ripple is so fast, Ripple is so, and then I started studying a little bit. I read a Peter Todd report on it. I read a few things. It was total bullshit. Ripple was a fixed federation, totally centralized, just masquerading as a decentralized ledger. And it was a pre-mined, 100% controlled shitcoin masquerade as a decentralized asset. So I wondered why Satoshi scammed me. And then it turned out that Ripple originally was a legit project of routing credit, a little bit like Lightning Network before Bitcoin, completely legit, born in 2006. But then the project failed, it was closed down, and these scammers in 2012 took the name of an existing project that was mentioned positively by Satoshi in order to scam people. So these are very nasty people. Garlinghouse is behind most of the anti-Bitcoin propaganda about climate bullshit. That we now have the School of Satoshi is a beautiful Bitcoin symbol, but it was created anti-Bitcoin, funded by Greenpeace, was funded by Garlinghouse in order to hurt Bitcoin. So they're very nasty. I think that, we all hate Ethereum. Yeah, it's a scam, it's pre-mined scam, it's centralized, but Ethereum has a weak spot, which is the fact that being fake technology, they have to fake a lot of new technology every year. Like they have to say, now we go proof of stake and sharding and stuff and second layers, and they have to keep lying up this kind of fake technology in order to stay relevant. Ripple has the strength that they don't have to do anything at all. They just sit on the same bullshit of 2012, literally the same, and once they do some lobbying with banks and now government in order to seem legit, then they do a little bit of pump, and then they go away for 3 years. So they understood the cyclical nature of Bitcoin hype, and so every bull market, Ripple brothers will come back to try to infest and infect Bitcoin activity. Let's say.
God, I had no idea it pre-existed Bitcoin.
There was a project called Ripple, apparently.
Oh my God.
And they used the name because Satoshi mentioned that project in his work. That's what Giacomo is saying.
Yeah. Wow.
And
I love Giacomo. I've learned so much from him over the years, and I just learned something new that I'd never heard him talk about before. Thank you. Amazing. Wow.
So I wrote an article, and there is some mentions of the different types of projects that Ripple did with different governments or central banks. But as you hear people that know stuff in the industry for a long time, basically what they do is they find like a politician that they can work with. They sign him up on a pilot, or they actually do a small pilot project with them, and then they just do a lot of press releases and a lot of marketing noise over it, and they accumulate a few names, and they keep going, and so their army is like cheering for them from one project to the next. But all projects are with central banks and governments. It's like,
100%. And I mean, and in every cycle, that's been the same story. But I don't think anything has ever come from it other than they've introduced this technology to sovereigns that then are going to use it against us.
That's right. And now they're actively trying to harm the efforts for a strategic Bitcoin reserve, right?
Yep. Yeah, 100%. That reminds me, I think it's really interesting. You showed, you haven't played the video yet, but you showed David Sachs, our crypto
right.
guy.
Yeah, I can show what he said.
In that, I think they talk all about stablecoin legislation and taxonomy of digital assets, and then he kind of refuses to talk about the SBR. He says, we're thinking about it.
Right.
And to me, that was such a tell that they don't want Bitcoin on the balance sheet until they have all this other stuff in place, because all that other stuff rides on Bitcoin's coattails.
All the other stuff is what? The
stable coins, the digital assets, the tokens, and the tokenized real world assets, all that stuff rides on Bitcoin's coattails, which is meaning when Bitcoin pumps, more stable coins are issued. Real world assets go up in value. Digital tokens go up in value. All the altcoins go up with it.
Yeah.
So let's get all that stuff in place, which we own now, because he's a big crypto player. He owns it all.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get all that approved and legitimized and in the system. Then we'll put SBR in place. We'll put Bitcoin on the balance sheet at the Fed or at the Treasury. We'll pump Bitcoin and it'll pull our bags up with it. It's like I said, with Nancy Pelosi, we didn't know she was the best trader in the world. With these guys, you're going to get full transparency and you're going to just watch them pump their bags in real time.
Yes. At the same time, I'm hearing smart people say that in terms of game theory, they don't want to disclose the fact that they may be already buying Bitcoin have a strategic Bitcoin reserve
or something else. Yeah.
Yeah. They just don't want to show the other countries that they're doing it so that they're not losing their advantage.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Department of Defense is already mining coins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very probable.
Yeah. All right, let's watch David Sachs give us a rundown.
Let me do that. Okay.
Stablecoins really have the potential to ensure American dollar dominance internationally, to increase the usage of the U.S. dollar digitally as the world's reserve currency, and in the process create potentially trillions of dollars of demand for U.S. treasuries, which could lower long-term interest rates.
Yes, I didn't bring the whole clip, but yeah, that's when he starts. Yeah. He doesn't say anything about SBR. He did answer a question about it, right? In the end.
Well, the question was, the answer was essentially, we're thinking about it. We have to put some more thought into that. Something along those lines.
It feels like they don't want to disclose what they're doing.
Yes, I think I hope you're right. I mean, for the sake of the United States, I do think that it's a two-sided coin for all the reasons we've discussed, but better than a debt implosion, I suspect, for the average person.
Yeah. I want to show you like a few last things before we wrap up from my presentation. So in the US, as we said, no to CBDCs, but yes to a crypto stockpile, yes to a dollar-backed stablecoin, and yes to SAB 121, which is, as you know more than anyone in your business, this is like, it's great because it opens the door for more mainstream adoption. It's all KYCs through the banks, right?
Yeah.
So that's the flood that is coming in. And we talked about Ripple. I think Russia is a really good example because while Putin is saying bluntly, who can stop Bitcoin? No one can stop Bitcoin. It's unstoppable. It's great. Da, 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 da. The next thing you see is this. Russia proposes registry to track Bitcoin mining hardware. So as long as you're surveilled, as long as we allow it, we permit you do mining, then it's okay. So they're all weaponizing Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, and mining, big mining operations, they leave a very big footprint that's easy to see for all sorts of reasons. And so, this is Jason Lowery's argument, right? That it becomes, if you're a government that wants to be sovereign on the Bitcoin network, you better be doing your own mining. You better have your own block space. You better have your own system in place to make sure your transactions go through. So these global hash wars are real, which is why I believe, like we talked earlier, that they're probably doing this already.
Oh, sure. I totally believe in it if they're smart, and I think they're not stupid. And I did hear Bob Burnett talking about it, explain it really nicely in the event that you participated in Naples. In the mining panel that they had, they talked about the importance of mining for countries in terms of the geopolitical battles that they have. So yeah, and as you mentioned before about Milei, there's another example here from Central African Republic. They debuted their meme coin experiment. And that place, CAR, is actually funny because they started off with Bitcoin as a legal tender, you know? And then they canceled it after a short while. They took it off and they started doing shit coining, and now they're doing a meme coin, like a national meme coin. Such a funny trajectory, but just like seeing all of that happening, all the different products being utilized, but by all different states, whereas Bukele stays relatively consistent with Bitcoin only, which I think is the leader right now.
Give him kudos because he's the only leader to date that has been publicly on point and listening to the signal and not participating in the noise at a large scale. So you got to give him kudos for that.
For sure. So, and there's a whole other part that we won't go into now, but I basically cover like the carbon markets driven by climate agenda as part of the monetary system, because the moment you start introducing more and more carbon instruments, then you can quantify everything and create more tokenization of natural assets of the world. Essentially.
It's a natural fit with CBDCs, right?
Yeah, carbon is like opening the door, like it's the key to unlock a whole new paradigm of stuff that you can monetize and put on a blockchain and transact and then keep the fiat beast going. So I think that's an enabler for sure. Yeah,
100%. Awesome.
All right, that's.
This has been a great talk. It always is with you, Efrat. I love our conversations. So I appreciate you taking the time today to share everything with us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. Keep doing the good work.
Yeah, you too. Keep it up. And if you come up with some solutions for us to avoid the matrix indoctrination, let us know.
Well, my solutions are always the same. I always say, learn about what's happening, educate yourself, get Bitcoin, non-KYC and self-custody if you can, alongside your KYC Bitcoin. And take care of your mental state and your physical state, because if you're healthy and you're prepared, as I heard you saying, you have your your property waiting for you with animals and stuff, and the skills to be able to grow your own food, then you'll be fine. Just sit back and relax and watch the show, because
That's the plan. That's the plan.
It's a shit show from now till 2030 at least. So
exactly.
I mean, hang on tight there. I shared the meme today on my Twitter with the Noah's Ark. Did you see that one?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
You should see it. It's the funniest thing.
HODL's taking on a new meaning from 2025 to 2030.
You know what? Let's play it for the end of our podcast.
All right, let's do it.
That would be so funny. Wait, I'm putting it on. There we go. Okay, let me share the screen. And then we finish. See it?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Get on the ark!
Stop, lady. What tell you? Fine. Go.
Hey, Ahab! This is it!
It would appear.
Get on the ark! Everyone on the ark now!
I think we should get on the ark.
I agree. I think we should get on the ark also.
I'm cold, I'm wet, I'm going home.
Oh my God, that was brilliant.
Right. Isn't it brilliant?
Did you create that?
No.
Who created that? That was insane.
No, his name is Naive Meme. You can see it on my wall.
Awesome.
I gave him credit. Naive Meme. Yeah.
Naive Meme. That was all time. Great way to end it. Thank you, Efrat.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you soon. Appreciate your time today.
So you've heard Bitcoin is the new gold rush by now. As world leaders on all sides have endorsed it as the future of money, and now you're looking to get started, we'll show you how. It's actually easier than you think. First, go to your nearest Byte Federal ATM and turn your cash to coin. Byte Federal has over 1,200 locations around the country with the highest daily limits. Go to our website, bytefederal.com, to find the nearest ATM to you. Log in to any wallet, then create an account, deposit your US cash, and instantly convert it to Bitcoin. That's it. We are the only US manufacturer and operator in the Bitcoin ATM industry, and our US-based live customer service is second to none. Go on, give it a whirl, and don't get left behind. Click the link below.